On Tuesday, the news broke that we would be having another contender join into the ring officially for the President of the United States in 2020.
Well, there's been a lot of speculation as to why you're here tonight, and I just wanted to point out to everybody, what could she possibly have to talk about? She was here in November. I mean, November, take out the holidays, you were basically here last week. So, I'm just curious, do you have anything you would like to announce?
Yes.
And what would that be, madam?
I'm filing an exploratory committee for President of the United States tonight.
Gillibrand's announcement marks the third person to have officially put her hat into the ring to try and dethrone the president in 2020. However, it seems that just about every single Democrat politician across the country has announced an interest to try and do the same thing as the field of potential contenders continues to grow. Gillibrand is a politician who has been talked about since before the midterms as a potential presidential candidate in 2020. She was not up for re-election in 2018, so she was safe that way, but it appeared that she was continuing to position herself in a place where she could theoretically run for the presidency, and she appeared to have some great backing, and there's a lot of good reason for that. Kirsten Gillibrand remains to be an old guard Democrat. She represents the unions, the business interests, and the general blue dogs across the country. And this is important in the election that's coming up because most people assume that we are going to have a Democratic socialist running for the presidency in 2020 against Donald Trump. This may appear to be what the Democrats all across the country want, but there is continuing alienation of the union workers and the big business Democrats out there as more and more socialists and democratic socialists rise into the ranks of the Democrat Party. And we could see that from 2016 and even on into 2018 as more and more union members became disenchanted with the new wave of the Democrat Party and were turning their backs. A lot of people theorize that Donald Trump did win the presidency because so many of the old guard blue dog Democrats did turn their backs on the Democrat Party during the Obama years and instead turned their attention towards Trump, a lifelong Democrat who just happened to be running with an R next to his name. Kirsten Gillibrand additionally put herself into a position of power with the Democrat Party and its supporters when she broke rank against her Democrat colleagues during the Me Too era, calling for the resignation of Senator Al Franken in the groping scandal that ultimately ended his senatorial career. But Gillibrand does face some other issues, one of those stemming from the same direction as this position of power that she would have otherwise put herself in. While Senator Gillibrand was very quick to call for the resignation of her Senate colleague for sexual assault allegations, it can't be ignored the fact that Gillibrand also worked very closely on many legislative efforts with former New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. We all remember, of course, this past year when Schneiderman was forced to resign over another set of Me Too allegations, many of these much stronger than just groping a woman's boobs on an airplane, and some of them bordering on abuse or physical assault as well. Because it's never been made perfectly clear whether or not Gillibrand knew anything about Schneiderman's allegations means that it's an ambiguous gray area for anybody to latch onto while they're on the debate stage. Should Gillibrand take the next step and get herself involved in the presidential campaign and start participating in debates, it would not be a hard thing at all for Elizabeth Warren or Tulsi Gabbard to latch onto these allegations and try and turn them against Gillibrand to try and discredit her from the highest office in the nation. But let's look past that for a second and look at the idea that Gillibrand might make it through the debates, might make it through the primary process, and might have to debate Donald Trump on stage during presidential Lincoln-Douglas debates. While any of the Democrat candidates who would be on the debate stage with Gillibrand would only be trying to prevent Gillibrand from reaching the presidency and using the Schneiderman allegations to do so, Trump and Schneiderman have a very long-term adversarial relationship that goes back even further than when Trump was the president. Schneiderman did put up the legal obstacles to Donald Trump when it was time for Trump to try and roll back Obama-era EPA regulations in order to try and spur business and the economy in this country. But it goes back even further than that. In 2013, before the Donald ever descended the escalator and decided to announce that he was going to run for the presidency, Eric Schneiderman was a key figure in the $40 million lawsuit against Trump University that led to Trump calling Schneiderman a political hack and led to a New York State judge holding Trump personally liable for all of the damages incurred for running a supposed university without a license. The Schneiderman allegations are something that's going to be explored by the Exploratory Committee while Gillibrand is deciding whether or not she is officially going to run. But if she does run, she does face one other wild card, and it's going to be especially detrimental to her if this wild card decides to turn against her. And that wild card, of course, is named Hillary Rodham Clinton. I think most Americans believe at this point that if Hillary does run, she stands exactly zero chance of becoming the nominee for the Democrat Party. But that doesn't mean that as she runs, she's not going to stir the pot as she goes. And this could be especially detrimental to Gillibrand if she does run. Of course, Gillibrand is going to be running to be the first female president, a title that Clinton has coveted for a very long time. But additionally, Gillibrand was appointed in New York State to fill Hillary Clinton's seat when Hillary became the Secretary of State under Barack Obama. Given the fact that both women occupied the same Senate seat, it's not unbelievable to think that Hillary Clinton knows a lot more about Gillibrand than the rest of the country, and that could be doubly dangerous for the current senator. During the appointment process to get Gillibrand to fill the soon-to-be vacated seat, Clinton would have been seen as a sort of ally and a confidant. I'm sure Gillibrand told Hillary Clinton a lot about herself in the process to get that done, and I'm sure a lot of it was covered up or scrubbed in order to make sure that Gillibrand was appealing to the people of New York and eligible for re-election after the term ran out and she would have been running on her own merits. And therefore, that is dirt that Hillary Clinton would just have in her pocket that she could easily release about Gillibrand on a debate stage or in an advertisement to favor the person who Hillary Clinton was endorsing in the election. A lot of people would think that an exploratory committee would be something new from this election, as a lot of people didn't seem to know what it was when Elizabeth Warren announced that she was going to be forming one. But this has been a part of the presidential process for a long time. This was in the rules as officially the first time that a presidential candidate could start accepting donations. We just didn't hear the announcement that a person was forming an exploratory committee. Instead, we heard the announcement when the exploratory committee was finished and the person started running officially for the presidency. And this raises the question, of course, as to whether or not a person should be announcing before they start to officially run for president that they are forming the exploratory committee. Should these candidates be considered viable from the time that they formed the committee, or should we wait and see what the committee finds as to whether or not they should be running for president? When a candidate announces publicly that he or she is going to form an exploratory committee, it's going to cause a lot of people to start making videos just like this one. And a lot of the dirt that's out there is going to rise to the top of social media and get discussed. And that's going to be used in the polling as to whether or not the exploratory committee decides that the candidate should run for president. But as far as donors go, the FEC does not require the candidate to disclose the donations for the exploratory committee to the FEC until the candidate decides, yes, he is going to run for president. At that point, all of the donations need to be disclosed and all of the expenses need to be reported. But if that candidate doesn't decide to run, what happens to all of that money? Was it just in waste? Is there going to be any left over? How do we know if there's any left over? There are some negative connotations to announcing the exploratory committee rather than waiting until the end and announcing at the end when you decide that you're going to run for president. As far as Kirsten Gillibrand goes, I don't know how she's going to fare in the Exploratory Committee or the general election. She is closer to center than Elizabeth Warren is, or Bernie Sanders is, or Hillary Clinton pretended to be, but she does have some of these strikes adding up against her already. She's been the favorite of a lot of people on both sides of the aisle and a lot of independents, so it's all up in the air at this point. And we do still have almost 2 years before the general election. What do you think about Kirsten Gillibrand? Do you think she can make it through the primaries, and do you think she can make it through the general election? I always welcome a thoughtful and positive discussion in the comments section below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. Thanks as always for listening to this show and supporting this channel. And remember, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care.
You're always there.